had to go down and buy some socks. She said, well, if you checked your rifle case, you would have known you had socks. My mother warned me about you. Anyway, so there were some stories like that going on. By 1939, the Badland region, we now have it's dwindled down to 6 established brothels, and they're such a part of the fabric of society. They're up on that telephone directory, right on the wall. So on a Sunday night, you could call the cozy rooms and see if Susie Q was working. So we're the third one down, we're the Shasta rooms.
Wow.
Yeah. So these 6 madams get together, they pool their money, and they buy the city of Deadwood a fire engine truck. Pretty smart women, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it was very common for the police, once they picked up their police uniforms at the dry cleaners, stashes of cash were magically found in their pockets. Compliments of the madams, keeping that squeaky wheel greased.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then it was very common for the madams would give to local charities and groups, and one of these groups was the Little League teams of Lead and Deadwood. During the early part of the season, when that taxi cab driver pulled up to the practice, that coach knew enough to run on out, get that paper bag of cash, and there they had their uniforms for that year, and that happened every year up until 1980.
All
Yes.
brothels. Wow.
Yes. So in the early 40s, we start to see the community of the nation getting more and more conservative, and the madams get together and they get together and they form these unwritten set of rules. Not only do you keep your business within the Badland region, you only let your workers out into the town part 1 day a week. They can do their shopping, their errands, but they have to see the doctor, and they have to mind their manners, and they can't go into any bars on that side of the town, no soliciting, and they have to dress modestly. But everybody in town knew that that was a madam or a sex worker, because they were the best dressed women in town, and that was true throughout all the decades. Yes. And 3 o'clock, they had to be back for work, because get ready for work earlier that evening. So, yep. In 1943, Big Lou, the madam of the Mecca rooms, she's arrested for violating the Mann Act, which is running women across state lines for illegal purposes. Also in 1952, another South Dakota state senator state's attorney tries to shut the brothels down. Now let me explain, whenever there's a South Dakota state's attorney trying to shut the brothels down, it was always preceded by a murder in Deadwood. And sometimes that murder was linked to the brothels, sometimes it wasn't. But either way, it was the higher up saying, you people in Deadwood better behave. This isn't the Wild West anymore. And if you don't, we'll take away your brothels. Because they knew what the impact it would have on the community. So again, there was another raid. Of course, the one in the 1920s, that was preceded by a murder beforehand. So in 1952.
Murder of a sex worker or just murder of somebody?
Just a murder, yep. One of them was a suicide, a love triangle suicide that jumped off the Fairmont, I'm sorry. Yeah, it was a brothel worker, I believe.
Oh.
Or a low, yeah. Anyway, I would love to go in depth. I would love to know about those murders. Very interesting. So his name is Furtz. He does a brothel raid. He arrests all the madams, takes them down, and they stay in jail, but they all shared the same lawyer, and his last name was Bottoms. You can't make this up, folks. And he gets them out on bail, and they go right back to work the next day, because their sex workers were not arrested. But that fall, they shut down for 2 weeks, and they go to trial. And the only damning bit of testimony was given by a local police officer, and it was, I saw a man button his pants. And that was it. The jury deliberated within 30 minutes, and all the women were acquitted. So it was hi ho, it's back to work you go. Yes, right? Yeah, because they were not about to be taking down their brothels, their money-making machine.
Wow.
But again, it was the big arms flexing their muscles saying, you better behave. Yeah. Any questions about this era?
This is fascinating.
Yeah, very fascinating. Okay, let's go on into, by the way, this building was built in 1902, 03, and then it was apartments, and then it became a boarding house, And then in 1937, it became the Shasta Rooms, a brothel. That's why the doorways are so big. By the way, this was a wall, but we made it into a doorway to make a good flow for the tour. So let's go into the 60s and 70s. The era of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Women are burning their bras, and I'm not talking about the prostitutes. I'm talking about the hippies.
Yep.
No, that is not real cocaine. I tried it. It hurt like a humdinger. Actually, I think it's foot powder, and now I'm hooked. No, just kidding. And check out this hair dryer. Whoa, talk about phallic symbol.
Yeah.
Talk about 70s. That's totally 70s. I love it.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was a lot in the 70s.
Yeah, right? So the brothels continue to be very successful, and they're very generous to the community. In 1965, a local little girl in Deadwood decides to go trick-or-treating for UNICEF. Her dad said, well, wait till I go get off work and we'll go downtown. By the way, by the 60s, there are now 4 established brothels. And this one's still around. And so the Shasta Rooms has become the beige door. Then we've got the brown door, the white door, and the green door. So in 1965, they go downtown and they go to 4 places only. And it went something like this. Well, how much did the green door give you? Well, how much did the white door give you? Well, how much did and so on and so on. They wanted to outgive each other. And within 15 minutes, this little girl had $500 for UNICEF in 1965.
Wow.
Very generous women.
Wow.
Also, deer hunting season continues to be quite lucrative, and we've got a bunch of eager hunters coming every season, every year. And the madams have to hire women off the circuit in the U.S. to come and work because the supply was in such demand. The demand was so much. And so we would have all the rooms turned into work rooms practically, except the parlor and the kitchen, of course, and the bathrooms. But so they would have to share the workrooms. Of course, women throughout the decades could decorate the workrooms however they wanted, but they rarely would sleep in the workrooms unless it was deer hunting season, because you had no other, it was pretty crowded. And the madams had to have entertainment in their parlor because the men were waiting their turn for a while. And in 1970, a local gal was walking down Main Street, Deadwood, and there were lines coming out of all the brothels all the way across the street to the other sidewalk. Yes. In fact, they were stuffing men in every nook and cranny possible, and in one of the brothels, they put a man in the bathroom because there was no more room, and they found him there asleep on the toilet the next morning. Poor soul, never got his happy ending. He must have been drunk as a skunk. Yeah, right? Also, the women have to go twice a week during deer hunting season, and the madams buy deer hunting licenses, and they pay the little boys of Deadwood $60 a deer. So these men, their clients, could go home with deer, a whole tag of deer if they wanted.
Wow.
Yeah.
To fool the wife.
Yeah, smart entrepreneurs. Yes. In 1975, hello, we've got a new madam in town. Va 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 boom. Her name is Pam Holiday, and she's young. She's 44. We're going to talk more about her in the last room, but it isn't a coincidence that she comes in 75, and the brothels are shut down 5 years later. There's no coincidence. She has a lot to do with that, but we're going to talk about that in the last room. Yep. Any questions so far?
What in this room?
This is a closet, and this is just probably World War, like war vets, but also if you wanted to play naughty nurse.
Oh.
Yes, this is like, it would be like $20, 20 minutes for straight up sex in 1969. After that, you would negotiate. So if you wanted to play naughty nurse or anything else, it would go up in price. But this was probably some dresses, in the 60s, this was probably a dress. This was probably a nightgown. Yep. And that was probably a robe. Yeah. Just to represent, some of their stuff. But check out these slippers over here.
Yeah.
Are they still there? They're
So
very tiny.
Yeah.
Very
That was
tiny.
even the 70s.
Yeah.
You got a Vietnam era and you got a Korean.
Yeah. Korean War, and yeah, it's fascinating.
The dark green Vietnam, yeah.
Yeah.
or at least that time frame.
Yeah. I didn't even know that. Thank you. So we're gonna go across the hallway into, any other questions?